right, next session on the way. So building a deep tech company is never just about science. It's about resilience, turning partnerships and turning breakthrough ideas into real-world businesses. Now we've got some of the UK's most exciting emerging founders to discuss the realities of scaling deep tech right now. Please welcome Wilbe's Devika Thapar, Apoha's Anshika Srivastava, and Milvus Advanced Assia Kasdi. Sorry about the words. Jordan Abdi from U-Ploid Biotechnologies. Big round of applause, please.
All right. I was making sure I can see the time. Good and rainy afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I thought we had 20, but we have 18 minutes, so I'm going to jump right in. It's sweet timing for a panel. I'm Devika. I'm one of the co-founders of Wilbe. We started Wilbe during the pandemic with a single belief that abundance this century will be unlocked through science. But for science to change the world, it needs to reach it first. And the best position to do that are scientists. So we built the firm centered around technical founders and scientific founders to realize their wildest ambitions away from the legacy structures of academia, tech transfer, and journals, and prize towards a system that honors innovation, speed, urgency, and real-world impact. And today is super special because Wilbe itself would not be here without the heart and the vision of our earliest founders, Anshika, Assia, and Jordan, literally the OGs of our firm. And okay, before I go on an emotional monologue, I would love if you guys can tell the room in a sentence or two what each of you are building. Maybe we can start with Anshika.
Sure. I mean, in very simple terms, we all know what AI has done, and it has really conquered the digital world. And it's actually now coming after the physical world. And when we say physical, it's like, what we wear, what we drink, what we eat, what we take when we are sick. And as we enter into this physical world of AI, we at Apoha are unlocking how materials actually behave. And when we think about behavior, I mean, we can think about, you have your morning coffee. You can feel the creaminess of it. You can feel the tanginess of it. Also in more advanced materials like drugs, batteries, it's all about experiencing how materials will behave in real world conditions. And that's something that doesn't exist today. I was very surprised when we started the company. And that's what we are unlocking. So how materials behave in the real world and how can we make that accessible to technologies and design better materials.
I think we need to unpack that definitely at the next round.
Yes.
Assia.
So at Milvus Advanced, we came to the realization that the whole world is made of metals. And these metals are critical, especially in the energy sector, and more critical for the energy transition. But metals are not coming from Earth. We have a certain pot of metals that we mine, and if we run out, then what happens? So I am a PhD. I did my PhD in inorganic chemistry, and what we're saying is that instead of focusing on one metal, let's focus on what the metal does in these technologies, and the future ones are critical, and substitute them with earth-abundant materials that we synthesize in the lab that replicate these properties. So this is what we do, basically.
Jordan?
Thank you. Yeah. U-Ploid, we're in the world of baby making. So people having children later in life, that's running up against quite difficult infertility journeys. We're developing treatments effectively to treat age-related subfertility and infertility and ultimately remove the biological clock from having children. So I'm sure we'll get into more of that today, but we're very excited with our lead program, Livanta.
So we have baby making, modern-day alchemy, and machines that can taste, smell, touch, and feel. Such is the spectrum of true deep tech and what we're going to see in terms of innovation in the decades to come. But before we dig into what you guys are building, let's share a bit of perspective of why you guys are doing this. So we start with Assia. Assia, you did your PhD at Oxford, and then you went into industry. and then you had an epiphany out there, and which led you back to do your postdoc at Oxford, and then you were like, all right, I need to start Milvus. Why?
Yeah, I was working in a space industry, and decided like going back to a postdoc in Oxford, slashing my salary half. The reason for that, actually, it's like a very specific moment where we had meetings and the whole day meetings with people, major people in the industry of space. And basically, the first meeting, literally in the morning, was like, oh, how the ISS was about to be like hit by a small debris because we are not technologically advanced to see it on time, and we had to evacuate, and it's millions that are wasted. And in the afternoon, they were like, oh, actually, we have an idea. It's like we are going to do space mining because we don't have enough metals that on Earth, and space mining will solve the problem regarding basically mining platinum. I was like, this morning we were saying we are not that technologically advanced to see a small debris of 10 centimeters. You're talking about space mining. And so like basically it was a realization that we are selling a future without realizing that we have some geological constraint on Earth, and we are not that technologically advanced to do this kind of research exploration. While I spent 4 years during my PhD working on alternative substitute using cheap elements like copper, nickel, understanding actually how we can synergistically blend them to replicate the platinum element. So, and when I was bringing that up to the industry, they said, oh, it will take years and years to work on that. Well, let's focus on space mining, spending billions. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. This is not the world I want to be part of. And I said, I'm going back where actually I had my patent, so the University of Oxford, and say, actually, I don't know anything about entrepreneurship, but let's do a business on that. So really based on the frustration in a like, maybe I was too grumpy that day, I don't know, but this is the reason I did on Milvus.
You've actually now managed to create a substitute to platinum.
Yes. So something that everyone was saying is impossible. So platinum is one of the rarest elements on Earth, and we mine it. And it's like the most abundant element among the platinum group metal that are actually mined only in South Africa. So imagine geopolitical constraint, geological constraint, and yet a whole industry depends on platinum. And there are other like industries that depend on other rare elements. We can talk, I heard lithium, the previous panel, but also you have indium. So everyone was saying it's impossible to substitute platinum using very like basic element. I was like, it's possible. So when we built the team, I infused that to the team. It was also convincing the team because the team was like, no way, no way. I said, no, we are doing it. And after 2 years, we did it. So it was like a celebration because nobody believed that we could do that. And so for us, it's saying to the world, it's possible. It needs energy. It needs motivation. But you don't need to rely on mining and elements. You can recreate them in the lab.
Anshika, you left your coveted job in Goldman Sachs. I think you probably more than slashed your salary to start Apoha with Shamit. What was the unfair insight that you saw and felt like this needs to exist in the world?
I think like there were two moments that happened. So first of all, because Shamit and I, we are also husband and wife. So I had the front row seat. Yeah, I mean, like no one ever builds company with their partners. And so it was something that I wasn't sure we should be doing, just because, why are others not doing it? But I think like for me, the insight was that I had this front row seat to the amazing science, some like kind of science we read about in textbooks, like Newton did this and Einstein did this. And there was like one after the other, things were happening in the lab, and this group was like doing things that hopefully like, at some point also gets recognized as much as we recognize it. But I thought there was like science happening, and I was kind of like always an observer. With my background, I was building products. I was like, yeah, cool, like go for it, but never actually part of it. And I remember like during COVID, it was kind of, I knew that Shamit was working on something which potentially could expedite the vaccine development, but I wasn't sure like how are they related. And then I understood, like, whatever he talks about in a very scientific words basically came down to a very big bottleneck that exists everywhere. and it impacts everyone, and we don't recognize it. So mostly materials fail in real world and in clinics, and why it takes so many years is because we are designing by atom, we're designing one molecule, we are designing a material which looks amazing in lab, and then it fails later on in clinic, in actual environments, in clinical trials, in animal models. And what that does is, like, it's limiting our ability to discover medicines faster, to get access to healthcare faster. And so that was the aha moment for me, that we have something that can really unlock how materials behave, which also still sounds very scientific. But imagine what that data could help us accomplish when we can actually move away from discovery and actually go into design, and design for real world. And so that was the aha moment for me, and that's actually how we started Apoha. And I really feel like this is one of those things where, like, a few moments in science happen. We have seen what sequencing has done, DNA sequencing, protein sequencing. We have seen what AlphaFold has been able to do with the structural information. Now, if you have behavioral information, and then you kind of like cover these 3 pillars of data class, and that's finally how you unlock the potential of what you can do with materials.
Can you share I'm familiar with the technology because
Yes.
we've been on this journey for a long time together. Can you share an example, perhaps, outside of pharma that
Yes.
can help bring it to life for everyone in the room?
So there's a company, and again, as an outsider also at that time, because this was the very first thing we did. There was a company, plant-based company. Their products are very famous. They're all in supermarkets. And they wanted to replace their key protein in a product. And the reason was, this was COVID, the supply chains went out of business. And they're like, we really need to replace this protein. We have only 1 month supply left. And now think about you're designing something that should feel and taste and texture should be like chicken, but it's not. So it's plant. So how do you come up with that? And they reached out to us like, hey, can we use this technology? We've heard that you are doing behavior. So instead of making things in the kitchen and eating all the time, and the scientist who was working had this brace on her hand because she was mixing things so much, so she could not mix anymore. She's like, can you help? And so we actually captured behavior of proteins. It's a physical technology. You can literally drop materials, let them see, interact, and capture the behavior in a very multidimensional way. And seeing which protein behaves closest to the chicken protein, in this cluster, you can actually find materials. So we found that material in a week, and that product actually made it to the supermarket. So for the last multiple years, a product in the supermarket, and it was our recommendation.
Wow. So hypothetically, if I want to create a particular kind of a perfume for myself,
Yes.
and I gave you what I wanted,
Yes.
we could do that with Apoha.
Yes, behavior is all about the aromas, the texture, the umami, and yes, we can do that. It's like behavioral similarity, what will take us to the similar smells, similar flavors, similar textures, but also in different materials, whether something can be injected in your body. If a drug is going to circulate long enough to be effective, is it going to target the right cancer cells? All of that is behavior.
Love it. Jordan, we'll switch from that to back to baby making. You came from a different perspective. You came from medicine and from the world of business and even venture, and joined forces with Alex and Chloe to start U-Ploid, which is addressing arguably quite a prominent topic of fertility. Tell us more about your why.
Absolutely. Can I say, I didn't know you and Shabak were married. I don't know if part of Wilbe's investment thesis. So my 2 co-founders, Alex and Chloe, are also married. So maybe there's something in deep tech and
Wilbe.
your life partner.
We do have 3 portfolio companies that are couples/siblings, including ourselves as founders.
I always think no startup would be able to attract my talent, haha, if I did not know the amazing science my co-founder is doing.
So I'm not from the world of fertility at all, but so medic by training, been working in life science in various capacities, maybe for the last 7-8 years. And what always excited me, both in medicine and pharma, I loved working in rare disease, because these are maybe the last frontiers of healthcare for which there are no cures today. When you're working on these technologies, orphan indications, and you're making medicines actually for people for which there is no other option except suffer with the disorder and or have treatments that kind of keep people going and manage symptoms. I found that very exciting. And I ended up in fertility by accident. I was on a project working on IVF medications, and it occurred to me, this is not rare. Like, infertility is a major, major problem. It's not talked about much. It's a huge outstanding stigma in the world of infertility, especially as more and more people drift into having children in kind of what's considered later reproductive years. But actually, it's also an orphan indication. There is no treatment if you're infertile. Outside of some very specific indications of infertility, actually, there's nothing you can do about it. You can try and try again. You can try IVF and pour money and hope down into what is ultimately a very, very low-yield opportunity. 7 in 10 couples who start an IVF journey end it without a baby. Horrendous. No one talks about that. And I, by chance, was introduced to the wonderful Alex and Chloe, who are two oocyte biologists, molecular engineers, and geniuses who are developing technologies, actually, to potentially treat infertility. And our lead program, Livanta, specifically looks at egg quality. Eggs are by far the most interesting cell in the human body, and women's body specifically, because they're very old. They're the oldest cell in the body by decades. They're produced in the fetus, in the womb of the mother, and they will survive decades before they may ever be used. And that's wonderful, with the exception, of course, that these oocytes age. And that drives a number of issues, one of which is the ability to conceive, particularly after the age of 35. And so very much our entire company is focused on reversing this narrative that there's nothing you can do about infertility and treating it. So we've had a roller coaster journey. We have an ongoing human study here in the UK and a parallel study out in the United States, where we actually learn, touch wood, very soon, the results of our human study here in the UK. So across 6 sites, we're enrolling patients, and we're weeks away from the readout of that study. And so it's been a really remarkable journey for me, certainly coming in and being able to contribute to a field for which it's been underinvested and underappreciated for decades. I mean, IVF is almost 50 years now. You can transplant an embryologist from 1978 and drop them into any IVF clinic today, and actually they'd get on just fine. There's no other medical indication where actually you could take a specialist and drop them even 10 years and expect them to operate at the same level as their contemporaries at that time. So it's a very exciting time to be in fertility, I can tell you that. And certainly our ambition is to proceed our program forward and work towards the first pregnancy in the coming years. But yeah, it's been a fun journey in, very different from, I guess, what I was doing before.
Phenomenal. And it's also crazy that IVF hasn't changed for so many decades. So in a weird sense, and when we were preparing about this, you were actually making the analogy to GLP-1.
Yes.
That's had its moment for obesity and several related diseases, and fertility is, do you think it's going to have the same?
Absolutely. Now, I think there's 2 problems, I think, in pharma in general. I think people who say they're innovators. People love jumping on bandwagons, and there are many, many examples of them. I think GLP-1s is a fantastic example, because GLP-1s are... The first licensed product was 2005. Why was this never approached for obesity? No one believed that anyone would ever treat obesity with a drug. Another example which I love using is Viagra. Viagra is a fantastic drug development story because, as most people likely know, it was originally developed for high blood pressure. And so they got through all their preclinical studies and all the animal safety studies, and they start their phase 1 healthy volunteer study in the 80s, and they noticed a very unfortunate side effect that would make the treatment sort of impractical for clinical use. So Pfizer, the company that had the program, said, well, we'll discontinue this program, we'll put it on the shelf. And they waited 13 years before they attempted to use it for erectile dysfunction. Why? Because no one at the company believed for a second that any man would walk across to the pharmacist or their doctor and admit to having erectile dysfunction, and they just considered there's no market for this. Impossible. Anyway, the years passed, 13 years of their patent lapsed, and they had made a lot of money on an oncology franchise, and said, let's give this a go. They moved it through the trials. They beat their sales target by 23x, one of the only accidental blockbuster drugs ever produced. But of course, the patent was nearly expired, and there's a wave of new products that compete with the program. And I think what we're looking for in fertility, part of the reason why very little innovation has happened in fertility is there has been no big success stories in the field, people to glob onto and get excited about. And we're hoping that, I mean, we're not the only company in this space, not the only company in the world of fertility, but we're hoping that we're at a wave of innovation now that's going to draw in a lot more excitement and intervention, because frankly, clinical care today is not good enough.
We were going to go into the perennial debate of Europe, but we won't do that because that's boring. Perhaps since we're almost at time, quickly, Jordan, what does the world look like with U-Ploid in it 10 years from now?
Biological age and reproductive capacity are no longer correlated.
Wow. Assia?
So a world where you don't rely on mining and you can actually replicate elements in the lab.
What's the next metal you want to recreate?
The non-confidential one is indium. Indium is, you have indium, you all have indium because you have touchscreens. Indium is really rare, 70% of the reserves in one country, that is China. The refining of indium is monopolized by China at 100%. If we don't have indium, we're all screwed. So indium is the one that, well, we have the alternative to indium as is scaling up, actually.
It's almost like a trading recommendation, buy indium.
Yeah.
And Anshika, I believe that straight from the janky prototype in your spare guest bedroom, fast forward to today, forget 10 years from now, but I believe today is a very special day because there's something you wish to share with the room for
Yes. No, absolutely. I think I feel everyone thinks that there is a future that is coming. And it's very interesting because I think like it's actually the present that we are living, and we will learn very soon how AI has really disruptive the vision, the speech, the text world. We would see very soon that the way we think materials are discovered and designed today is going to be obsolete. It's going to change the way we are able to access this information and be able to design something that works in the first time. And for that, we actually are announcing our Out of Stealth with... Thank you. It's been a key moment for us in the making, and today we released our collaboration with Boehringer Ingelheim, a big pharma player who has now leveraged the technology and running across multiple of their drug discovery programs, along with multiple research institutes and companies who are now using Apoha's liquid state intelligence to power material design.
Love it. On that note, and on this very great note, thank you guys. That was really, really great, and hopefully for everyone here in the room. And thank you to South by Southwest for having us.
Thank you.